From Volume 1 to 70, no debate like Itachi versus Pain has scourged the community. Upon Pain's introduction, everyone seemed to wonder if he could actually beat the strongest person we knew of walking around, Itachi. I've done this video before in the past, although stances have changed, and I want to end this debate once and for all with a more intricate discussion. Shooting for 20k, so subscribe. Itachi having surpassed not only the entire Uchiha clan, the strongest in Konoha, but also the Sannin whilst a teenager, who as individuals are said to make shinobi of all nations tremble, each being capable of taking on the role of Hokage, the strongest man in the world, with their group being said to be comparable to the 5 Kage in reputation, of the which Jiraiya lives up to when fighting Pain, as stated by Obito, taking on the form said to surpass the Prodigal 3 and merge into the realm of the Sage, of the which only he, Naruto, and Pain are capable of actually snapping Pain's black belted blades, showing how Pain, as well, can stand above the Sannin tier, even being above 2 complete sages, having killed one of them, like how Itachi killed Orochimaru, or so we thought, when sealing away not only Orochimaru but the Hydra as well, that's said to far surpass him. Where Itachi's enigmatic power would only be truly hinted at is when Sasuke would take on all 5 Kage, nearly killing them like the 4th Raikage A, all before he got 2 more amps to his chakra, plus another one said to make him unrecognizably stronger, where Danzo still perceived the young Uchiha to be vastly inferior to the heights once promised by his elder brother. And it would only be when Sasuke got an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, ocular powers and ninjutsu that surpassed Itachi's, the greatest offensive ocular ability, and a Susanoo said to be the ultimate absolute defense, which is the same rhetoric used in regards to Itachi's spirit weapons and how he related to Gaara's sand, Neji's rotation, and Kage Summit Sasuke's early Susanoo, that he would finally be able to stand shoulder to shoulder as equals with Itachi. Which, coupling this with Itachi's latent ability to fully outpace both KCM1 Naruto and Killer B in his base 3 Tomoe state, and equal Naruto's chakra arms using his Susanoo arms, something that he should blatantly scale to through the fundamental replicative aspects of the Edo Tensei, copying everything exactly from when the subject was alive. Like how Nagato's returned crippled, though Kabuto didn't aid him, and Hiruzen keeps his age through things like the exact same amount of wrinkles on his face and the same dead pigment cells for things like his beard, meaning that the form of Itachi revived by nature has to be a form of him at some point during his life, perhaps at an earlier point, which all does seem to allude to the fact that Itachi would obviously be far above the same Kage Summit Sasuke, stated to be equals to Sage Naruto multiple times, with both of them getting and fulfilling the same amps given later, which made them equals at the final valley, where here they have the same mental scape interactions wherein both combatants concede to needing the next step in power to beat the other, and therefore since Sage Naruto could beat Pain, this does look pretty favorable for Itachi, right? Well, not necessarily. You see, there are 2 inherent points that need to be touched on. The first of which is that Pain isn't really equals to Sage Naruto and is blatantly stated to have power surpassing him, with him being able to hold back, matching not only base Naruto, Sage Naruto, but his Rasen Shuriken form as well. And it would only be when Pain had used a chaotic Shinra Tensei, something stated in the 10th Mini Chronicle Guide, to have drained the Diva's chakra completely, killed Kakashi, stopped most of Konoha, and fought multiple fully charged Sage Narutos, that Tendo, his true power, would finally come out, yet he would be cripplingly fatigued using a life-drawing Shinra Tensei and still being taken down by a tricky strategy of Naruto, with the Kizuna Earth Scroll guidebook mentioning how this scene is meant to represent more of an ideological clash of who is properly fulfilling their sensei's dream to a peace that could be. One fighting through the power of belief and hope in the world to come, and another fighting through the power of pain and the need for a destructive revolution. So perhaps the realization of his own missteps began a few chapters earlier, as if to say the cracks came in place long before he shattered, just like Obito during the war arc, meaning that Pain really wasn't ever even overcome by Naruto, but was overcome by his own mental faculties. The second inherent point to be discussed here is that most of Itachi's arguments all inherently presuppose that they are the only connective link to assert a gap or superiority over one of these members in comparison to the other, when they're not. You see, both his scaling to EMS Sasuke and his scaling to KCM1 Naruto are arguments for Itachi to appeal to an external source that could then be related to Pain, when it's not the only way to do this. The reason as to why they don't really mean that Itachi should have the physical advantage is because Pain's numerous implications sourcing him as the strongest man in the Akatsuki throughout Data Book 3, which covers up to chapter 402, which also includes all the members' abilities for the most part, notes that though each member can take on Biju, Jinchuriki, and 1,000 men need be, the reason why they follow Pain is due to his charisma and power that no one can deny, which grants Pain 2 qualities for why the members who have been applied strength traits would follow Pain, giving them both charisma and power, wherein power gets an extra quality added to it, being that which no one can deny. The same data book, also in reference to Pain, states that he is the invincible leader of the Akatsuki. Even the notoriously strong members obey him, which again you'll notice it applies a similar attribute to both Pain and the members, calling them strong, but Pain and invincible to the heights which they may possess. We then know that Itachi obeys Pain in Datara's flashback, which demonstrates Itachi hailing Pain as their leader to the other members, as if to correct them, whose orders must be followed, which could actually be interpreted as a reference to Pain's power being the reason why the members would obey him, seeing as it also is made known that this statement grants the qualities of strong to both Pain and the members, alluding to this being a directly power-correlated sphere. As for the leadership being power correlated on its own, we know the second data book states, acting covertly with hidden intentions united under a common goal, these 9 shinobi, who is their sovereign-like, king-like figure leading them, wherein Pain is referred to as a king-like or sovereign leader within the original kanji. This is similar to the previous statements for Pain and how it discusses the members of the organization, each being infamous throughout their own lands, with Itachi's Sharingan in particular being feared throughout the entire world, alluding to him being a more notoriously strong member, where suspense is then laid out to Pain's identity. And upon his first introduction, we actually get an interesting note, where, following similarly to how Itachi did, Kakuzu shuts down Hidan's pleas with Pain's orders, who is sitting at the top of Amegakure, as if to show the difference between his divine status and everyone else, like how Sasuke towered over Naruto in the beginning of Shippuden, something that is both power and ideologically correlated, as noted directly in Data Book 3. To supplement the reputation gained from every member, Pain is stated in the Naruto Kizuna Earth Scroll to be the most notorious criminal in the entire shinobi world, who declares himself a god intending to bring salvation to people through pain, meaning that each member is known and powerful, except Itachi is notoriously more strong than the other members, and Pain is the most notorious of all of them, which sits directly in line with more implications that support his invincible status, something defined as incapable of being overcome through the chapter 364 synopsis statement, which notes, next time, the strongest man in the Akatsuki pursues Naruto. And while sure, Itachi does appear in the following chapter after catching up to Naruto, Oxford Language's definition for pursuit is, quote, to follow someone in order to catch or attack them. This is why this is clearly discussing Pain, as Naruto's first question to Itachi is asking if he was there to capture him, and Itachi simply says, no, I just want to talk, eliminating himself from the statement, whereas Pain is now actively hunting Naruto with the capture of the Nine Tails in mind, which he states verbatim when capturing Naruto, meaning that all in all, Pain's invincibility is one of the most key points throughout this section of the story, and does tend to allude that Itachi, being physically weaker than Pain, should be probably consistent, but this doesn't necessarily have to be true completely, as Itachi is still considered to be invincible just within his V4 Susanoo state, as noted by Zetsu, where in this state it's said to be so strong that it's feared as the most powerful ocular ability, which would directly encompass the Preta Pass absorption, the Animal Pass summonings like the Replicating Dog plus Chameleon, and the Ashura Path missiles, and that's really all that's been used up until this databook's release, although Shinra Tensei and Bancho Tennin are likely also encompassed through a later praise of the spirit weapons in Fan Book 2, and if we know that they should still be repelled by the nature of how the Yadamir actually works, matching the incoming attack's properties, altering its own to then repel it, plus the anime does show Pain using Shinra Tensei against Jiraiya at the end, but I digress. meaning that without the Susanoo, Pain is superior, and with the Susanoo, we aren't really quite sure, at least in the earlier states, though Itachi can counter most of Pain's abilities with the V4 state, although what needs to be noted here is that Pain in his less completed form, being these 6 paths, should by nature be above any non-Susanoo Itachi. Upon awakening his guardian deity, he then shows that he can get even a blitz level faster, as shown when Sasuke would fight Danzo and move on par with him, though completely blitz him with the Susanoo, and we know that Pain would also get a similar level amp, probably, through all the other paths chakra being then allocated solely to Tendo, giving a greater attritional advantage, where if he just kept out the Preta path like he did in the fight against Naruto, then the Susanoo itself is just chakra as stated in Itachi's very databook file, and it's only when the spirit weapons come out, which by nature are ethereal, though connected and made manifest through a physical body of chakra in the Susanoo, and it would be likely through these abilities that Itachi could beat like Obito and seal its non-physical form, although I'll come back to why that's relevant. To put it simply, Pain would likely win this more times than not, through his ability to take down base MS Itachi, initial Susanoo Itachi, just not the spirit weapons form, which could still happen through a battle of attrition, and Itachi's ability to hold up the Susanoo for a prolonged battle, which he actually can do, holding up until he literally dropped dead against Sasuke, but basically through things like Ashura Path missiles, whose weapons are even beyond the world's peak technology, his numerous animal path summons, and most importantly his Shinra Tensei and Bancho Tenin, to eventually keep the pressure on Itachi to just negate his abilities through absorption and ones like the Amaterasu, to then kill him through something like a black belted blade. All of this is of course operating under the presupposition that the Susanoo is standing as his trump card to be used last, following his other MS abilities, which happened against both Sasuke and Nagato, like how Sasuke reserved his Susanoo to fighting Danzo after using both the Amaterasu and Inton Kagetsuchi. There is one primary counter example to this, and that's against Kabuto, where Itachi and Sasuke both opened the fight at the V3 Susanoo, seeing as Kabuto was a threat great enough to permit that. If that were to happen in this fight, then this is what we have if you're a more advanced scaler and want the minutiae of it all. Pain is stronger, 6 paths to base MS, and both get an amp through a large allocation of chakra, though we know Itachi likely has a greater sum through a blitz level superior showings, when Pain is implied through a less known medium, wherein we could likely infer that Pain is still likely above, particularly due to abilities like absorption leaning in his favor. And lastly, we have the same form of Tendo, Pain being likely inferior to the V4 variation, which is a greater allocation of chakra on top of the proved blitz level amp, and another level for the weightless ethereal Totsuka blade, which can be thrusted and extended and adding another layer of speed to then seal the opponent. Putting it simply, the first sets of forms, Pain wins. The second set is unknown, with Itachi likely having a slight physical edge, with Pain having an ability one. And for the third and final form, Itachi is certainly above Pain and wouldn't really have much trouble sealing him. We also know that Itachi can not only utilize the V4 Susanoo to operate independently from his body, like with both Sasuke and Madara as they do the same thing, but he also can use the Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi inside of the Susanoo, as Sasuke does that against Danzo, and we know that he could lay streaks of Amaterasu across the ground to force Pain into certain positions, perhaps some with, like Tsukiyomi, unless you think the Genjutsu blockers would null it. If the battle were to go long range, then the Yasuke beads could beat Pain up. In their revived encounter, Naruto, without having knowledge of the spirit weapons, does judge that the previously seen version of Chubaku Tensei is above anything Itachi's shown there, so that's just another way, but the spirit weapon should probably still negate the gravitational effects, and it would be within these spirit weapons that Itachi would have access to a much faster form of attack and an ethereal weapon imbued with sealing ninjutsu to seal whatever it pierces into a world of drunken dreams. And since Obito's Kamui, which is stated to be as if Obito is bringing something conceptual into reality, being his body, though was still countered by sealing ninjutsu used by Minato, it would likely be through that Itachi could kill Obito, a threat stated by Minato to be beyond Pain, fitting with Obito's remarks about Pain, mocking him and whatnot. So we have another way to suggest that Itachi could kill an opponent greater than Pain in his peak form in V4 state. So all in all, Itachi in V4 wins more times than any of Pain's win amounts of all the other weaker members and forms, though Pain would still have more forms at which he could win at, and Itachi would only come in his V4 Susanoo, which happens 2 out of 3 times as a last resort. So I would ultimately give the fight to Pain 6, maybe 6.5 out of 10 times. But what did you guys think? Did you guys enjoy? Be sure to let me know. Subscribe. Once again, I really wanted to give this video a more in-depth breakdown for those who really care about the scaling, as the people that do tend to represent Pain do it quite poorly. But anyway, more importantly than that, may God bless you all. Love you guys.